Everybody, welcome back to What Are You Chasing? Today, my guest coach is Aaron. I'm going to go ahead and let Aaron tell you a little bit about himself. How are you, Aaron?
Good, Crystal. Thank you so much for having me here. I really appreciate the opportunity to be on your show and just be a part of this community.
You're welcome.
So, I was thinking about this and it kind of came up, and your podcast is called What Am I Chasing? What are you chasing? And I put it in context of trying to explain what I've been chasing. So, over the years, I've been chasing what would be a quiet mind, would be my end result, my goal, and over the time, I've struggled with a quiet mind. So through the days, we're filled with anxiety, depression, but I've come to an understanding of how to have a quiet mind. And that's with the three principles and the understanding of utilizing mind, consciousness, and thought. So as I progress through understanding my own quiet mind, I am becoming a life coach as well to move into helping others and serve for their understanding and knowing of how to have a quiet mind. So I thank you for the opportunity also to be here.
Oh, well, you're welcome and thank you. And yeah, you're, I think I've said this before and I'll say it every time. A quiet mind is key. It's absolute key to connecting with your inner self and connecting with the three principles. It's when we allow our thinking to just settle down, that allows our wisdom to surface and be more easily heard by us because there's not so much noise anymore going on in our heads. And yeah, it just makes it so much easier. It's so key to quiet down your mind, and it looks different for everybody. It's not always the same thing. It's not always meditation. Um, it can be
It's a
writing.
flow.
Yeah,
It's a flow, right? Yeah, it's kind of the idea of just being in the space where you're mentally prepared for whatever comes at you because you're present with yourself and the conversation, really just quietly listening to what is being said. Even before we started, we had a conversation of just, you know, being a little nervous for this, and it's understandable too, because it's new and we're just trying to have a conversation. So it's just being easy on ourselves right now.
absolutely. And I love that you say, it's just a flow because it is, our wisdom and our innate well-being, it's a flow state. It's effortless action and alignment that's guided by our inner wisdom. So yeah, I love that you brought up flow because it's truly what it is. And then we have these conversations and yeah, they're not scripted and they're authentic and they just have a flow to them. Because when we trust what's already inside us and we've seen for ourselves and we have a quieter mind, we have space for new thought to come to mind. And that just creates a beautiful dance in a conversation. Like you said, we were having a conversation right before this, and yeah, it's being a bit nervous is 100% fine and normal because yeah, when you're not used to doing it, it can be a little nerve-wracking, right? Oh gosh,
Oh
what if
yeah.
it's the what if game
Yeah.
I've talked about before. What if what if I say this? What if I don't know what to say? What if there's awkward silence? What if, it could go on and on. We tend to do
That's
that.
where the quiet mind comes in, and you're just listening to what is going to come into your head and just try to react as the conversation goes. There's no script here. And the flow state happens, basically throughout your day. We don't realize it, whether we're driving, cooking, baking, eating, playing a sport, whatever we're doing, we're really kind of tapping into that flow state of mind and just having an intuitive way of life. We're just being guided.
Yeah. we are. We're just being guided by mind. And you're right. I thank you for showing and sharing that perspective that, yeah, there's so many things we do that's just a flow state. That's
Yeah.
just from clarity of mind that we don't have to put, actual thought into or concentration. Let's use that word instead. Such as cooking, something you've cooked a
Yeah.
hundred times. You don't really need to think about it, right? You just kind of go through the flow. Or like if you're grilling, barbecuing, it's just something that we do. Baking, driving, we I think we've talked about, before in it doesn't matter where we talked about it, but like driving, we get to
Yeah.
a point where we don't think about it, right? We don't have to tell our brain to press the gas, and we don't have to say, okay, brain, let's make sure that we're going 55 and not 56 miles an hour. It's, and we don't have to say, oh my gosh, the road's turning a little bit to the right. Make sure we turn, we just do it effortlessly in that flow because it's unconscious at that point.
Yeah, even when we're in the car, we don't realize how big the car is, and we're just kind of naturally it becomes one with us, and we're just driving, we're cruising along, and it's just part of our trip to go to the grocery store, pick up the kids, and go to parties, whatever it may be, you know? So it's all part of the intuitive, the wisdom side of it too.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you brought up the word intuitive because yeah, that's kind of a little bit about what Aaron and I wanted to talk about today is intuition. So intuition, right? We've heard that term many, many times, probably more so than we've heard the term innate wisdom, right? Or universal mind or mind, thought, and consciousness as the three principles. Intuition is a word that I think it's fair to say that most of us are pretty familiar with. And so, yeah, I just kind of want to talk a little bit about that and, maybe open up that door to seeing, or let's say that window to seeing that what your intuition is, your intuition is really, now I know, is really just your innate wisdom that you were born with,
Yeah.
you know?
It's your own GPS system, right?
Absolutely. It's our own
Yeah.
little GPS and our navigational guide. And it's fine to call it wisdom because, I'll tell you a quick story. This is a
Yeah.
long time ago. Long. We'll leave it at that. I don't have to put the year on it, right? It was a long time ago. And I'm just gonna show what kind of teenager I was. So my brother and I were skipping class.
Not
Yeah,
you.
right. And we were in high school and we were skipping class and we were driving on a road. He was driving, I was the passenger. We were driving on a road highway that we normally drive on, okay? And we're following this guy that has a big, huge flatbed trailer that has a backhoe. For anybody that doesn't know what
Mhm.
that is, it's a huge piece of operational, heavy equipment to dig ditches and actually, more
Yeah.
like a pond. It moves a lot of dirt, let's put it that way. Anyway, this guy was carrying this, or I should say, hauling this flatbed trailer with the backhoe on it, and my brother and I were right behind him, right, and we're seriously a mile from our exit that we're getting off on, and the guy in front of us, he's going the speed limit, in fact, maybe just a teeny over, nothing, not massive speeding or anything, just fine, right? And all of a sudden, my brother gets in the passing lane and he passes them, and I'm like, "What are you doing?" He's like, "I don't know. I just feel like I need to pass him." And I was like, "Okay, I was kind of a rude teenager, okay." And I'm like, Whatever." So he passes them. We get in front of him, pretty much just in time to make our exit. But I am the second we got in front of this guy, The chains that were holding that backhoe snapped.
Oh my gosh.
Yes. I know. I
Mhm.
hopefully, I don't know. I hope the driver was okay. I think that he was, from what I can recall. Um, but the chain snapped. The the truck and the trailer jackknifed, and that backhoe went flying straight off the back. We pulled over. Okay, we
Wow.
were at our exit ramp. We pulled over, and I looked right at him, and I said, "Why did you get over?" Like 100 times, I kept asking him, what made you get over? What made you get over?" He's like, "I don't know. I just had a feeling. I just had a feeling, you know." So in telling that story, when I was younger and then not knowing the principles, right? I would say he just had this intuition. But now I can see that that was mind, number one, first and foremost. And it was mind speaking through wisdom, saying, "Hey, pass this guy." Thankfully, he listened.
Yeah.
But
Oh my God.
isn't that crazy? We sat there, I don't even know how long, Aaron. We sat there for a long time,
Yeah.
just in complete awe.
That hit me with your story.
It was crazy. It was okay. It was like 30 years ago, and I can
Wow.
see it in my mind perfectly how it went down. And now I just know that when I refer to mind, guys, in case you don't know, because I know I've talked a lot about thought more than anything, but mind is the universal intelligence that has our back. And yeah, that's now I know, and that's a beautiful example of mind having our back and
Well,
speaking to us through wisdom. Sorry, go ahead.
what comes to mind when I think of that story, Crystal, is that now it seems like you two were in a comfortable place being able to listen to that little nudge saying, hey, it's time to pass, you need to get moving. Whereas if you guys were arguing and your mind was full of that conversation that wasn't healthy, or you two were just in a good space together in your relationship, brought that awareness to you and it said, "Hey, it's just time to go. Just get moving, right? Get on your horse, get past." And you heard that little nudge to go, "Okay, it's time to get by. It's okay. Like you don't, let's get moving." But you were able to hear that because your mind was clear.
Yeah, that's a great point. That's a fabulous point to make,
Yeah,
and not playing the what if game. But yeah, no, what a good point, because what if we were arguing in that time?
yeah,
My brother and I, for the most part, got along fabulously. The best of
yeah.
friends. We're only 15 months apart. So,
Mhm.
um, we got along great.
Yeah.
But yeah, you're absolutely right. What if we would have been arguing over something, or just, I don't know, we didn't have phones back then, thank goodness, right? Because like our face could have been on our phone instead. Like it happens a lot nowadays. Um, but yeah, no, that's a great point. It was that quiet space, and oftentimes people don't realize that when they are driving, not for everybody, but for a lot of people when they're driving, that is one way that our mind does quiet down.
Yeah, you hear that often, right? You say, I got to go for a ride. It's
Yeah,
just mind, or it's easy and it's kind of relaxing, and I just kind of settle into my day, or they like their ride to work because it's just so easy for them, right?
right. Yeah. Like
Hmm.
they like their commute to work, or yeah, you hear all the time. You know what? I'm just gonna go for a drive. I just need to go for a drive and clear my head.
Yeah.
Not realizing that's truly what is happening. Is your mind is slowing down, the thoughts aren't racing around. Not true obviously in every circumstance, but
Yeah.
in a
Hmm.
lot of them. That's a good point.
Yeah, you're jumping into your flow state, and that comes back to having a quiet mind because you're just it's natural. You've been driving for 30 years. Some of us we get, after years of driving, we get comfortable. And sometimes you go, how did I even get here?
Yeah.
But some will say that's anxiety, but some will say flow state. So it's depends on where your mind and your thinking is at, where you kind of realize that that's the quiet mind that you look for to kind of bring in that subtle nudges, as you call, wisdom or intuition, and that innate abilities to kind of just hear and not think. That's the best part. If we can find that state and not think about what we're doing, how we're preparing, even just this conversation, you just put it aside.
Yeah. I really like how you said not think, right?
Yeah,
Because
yeah,
for the most part, I feel like our entire lives we're taught, oh, you better think about it. You better think about that, and then
yeah,
we're in school and, it takes a lot of thinking, certain subjects, right? So it's almost like I don't know the word I'm looking for, but to say, not think. It's amazing. Yeah. Like you said, that's where we get our flow states, right? That's where we get our quiet mind and the effortless alignment to our innate wisdom and to our personal navigation system. And yep, that's
yeah.
beautiful.
This learning of the three P's and just mind consciousness and thought and innate well-being class has really kind of allowed me to really listen to myself and just be present. And I had a little bit of understanding with meditation and prayer previously, but when I started to really kind of understand that my well-being is so important, emotional, mental, spiritual, physical, it started to really kind of tap into the just intuitive listening and the wisdom within and just being guided and just saying, hey, listen, like I don't know the answer to this to this problem or the direction I need to go in life, and just offering up a solution, um, and letting that come to me naturally and trying to not think and process it so deeply that I get so consumed and anxious about the decision, right? So you kind of, it's almost like reverse of what we were taught in conditioning. You want to process, you want to figure it out, but then when we let it go and give it up to the wisdom, we kind of hear the solution, we hear the answers. And that kind of goes back to your point about schooling. If we could just teach that, if you're present in class, you'll absorb what you need to absorb. And then you can kind of move into taking that test and trusting that that answer will come through intuitively through your wisdom. And, if that could be helped or taught or understood at a younger age, it would take us to a whole new level.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Because, yeah, we are taught opposite. And if we were taught that at a younger age and just being present and having quieter minds, I wish that was something that they did teach. You know what I'm saying? And, even if it was
Yeah.
just, I understand this is a modality, okay? And I understand this is a technique, but excuse me, even some kind of, formal like meditation, even if it's putting on, just some soothing music to slow down the thinking of students before they start their learning process for the day, let's call it. Um, Gosh, how much more could they absorb, Because they would actually have that space to hear, like you said, that capacity and that quietness to hear. And then when they
Yeah.
would go to test, I like that point too, because with their quiet mind, they can rely on their innate wisdom, not getting all up in their head, insecure and second guessing. Oh my gosh, is it this? I think it's this. I don't know if it's this. Because, we do that. We talk ourselves out of the right answer all the time.
All the time.
We're looking for solutions for problems, and we have right off, okay, right off. I think sometimes wisdom will say, "Here's the answer," right? We just ignore it and we
Yeah.
make it so much bigger, and we look for this some ridiculous answer that, right? And we put so much effort into finding it that I think you kind of touched on that point too, that we're kind of blocking it, We're like, it's almost as if we're saying, yeah, shh, wisdom, be quiet. I'm trying to listen for you so I can figure this out, and just creating this total chaos. in our mind when, I mean, it's always readily available, our wisdom. Like kind of like my story earlier, just before I even knew what it was, and there's many more examples I'm sure that I could come up with, and probably you could too if you reflect, of how many times my wisdom came through and I had no idea. I had
Yeah.
no idea what it was.
I like how you said you started going like this, and I'm curious, like I kind of hear mine, so it's audio for me. When I hear something, I know it, some people can feel it, see it in different directions, and I think that's even continuous with three principles because we're never really knowing where the answer is gonna come from. So I hear a lot of when I ask a question, I'll hear it. It's not like it's a voice in my head, it's just a knowing, and I hear it, and it comes through, and that's when I'm able to process it. And it goes back to being in school. If they have the space to process it in the quietness and stillness, then they'll be able to kind of know the answer. And, but I liked how you were here with your hand and you were kind of like wisping it in and just kind of it comes in from your hearing.
So yeah, that's a good point because I that's what I love too. Like you said, I find it really interesting even in the principles and in our perspectives and the way that wisdom works. It does kind of work differently for each of us. Though there's one thing I feel like that it's important, that's it does have in common, whether it comes to us in words or in pictures. Um, there's always the feeling attached. And that feeling attached is a deep knowing, like
Mhm.
truth, right? There's no
Yep.
questioning it. It's truth. So it's an easy way to distinguish between wisdom and ego because sometimes that can get a little tricky for people. But yeah, I just wanted to put in there that yeah, mine comes
Yeah.
in as words too, as you can tell when I'm doing this and I hear things. And yeah, like Aaron said, no, it's not voices in my head. I hear wisdom and I know when it's wisdom because of the feeling that's attached with it. Is a it's really hard to articulate and explain. It's a deep sense of knowing that comes with it. And it's very cool. And it will never mislead you. We just need to learn to listen to it more, tap into it, quiet our minds, like you said, all of those things so that life would just
Yeah.
we could just relax.
It's always available to us as long as you are still enough. And that goes back to the beginning where I said it's just finding a quiet mind and being able to just listen. And it's just, it comes with a feeling,
Mhm.
the feeling of gratitude
Yeah,
and an understanding that you are in the right place and knowing that everything lines up as it's supposed to and willing to, and to whatever it may be, leading up to this podcast, leading up to your coaching session, leading up to the conversation, the experience with your family. It's all lines up in a synchronistic way that just kind of it happens because it's supposed to.
absolutely. Absolutely. And yeah, so synchronicity. I I love it. A lot of times, this is such an educational hour today. A lot of times that's confused. A lot of times that's confused with the word coincidence. Um, and then yeah, you know what? Before this understanding, I believed in coincidence, and that's another common phrase that we hear, right? Oh, what a coincidence! Oh, you're never gonna guess who I ran into today. It's such a coincidence. You know, people always say a coincidence, but you know, with this understanding, you see that it's deeper than that.
Yeah.
It's not this surface level, just happening that just, oh wow, okay, you know, I ran into this person or whatever, you know, however you want to word that. It is, first of all, I mean, synchronicities was coined by Carl Jung. Um, a different, you know, psychology than Freudian psychology. And yeah, it was that it's not just a coincidence. It's a meaningful alignment of events that reveal that the intelligence of life, mind, when we're in a clear state of mind. And you know, so I have to say something because you know that comes in. I just use mind twice, right, in the same sentence, and some
Yeah,
people are probably like, okay. So there's your personal mind and your impersonal mind. So your personal mind is your conscious mind, can be your ego. You know, there's a lot of different terms that we can use for that. Then there's universal mind. And one of the fundamental principles is the all-knowing intelligence that runs the whole show. Everything from the sun coming up and going down to the stars in the sky at night to whatever comes out of our mouths on this podcast to everything, everything
birds
in
in the
between.
forest, nature. Yep.
Yeah,
Hmm. Yeah.
everything. And so, yeah, I just wanted to kind of clear that up because I used mind and mind, you know, the
Yeah, thank you
intelligence
for
of
that.
mind.
It does help with understanding the two. Yeah, because you want to separate it because it does get misunderstood.
Hmm.
And once you understand that we're talking about the all, the source,
Yeah,
behind it all, as opposed to our minds that we think with,
absolutely.
it's different, it's separate. Yeah.
Absolutely. That's a good yes. Yeah. So, yeah, I I don't get to talk a lot, right? So far, I haven't talked a lot about mind. Um, you know, it's usually more about its thought, but you know, mind, thought, and consciousness, three principles, they're all, every single one of them are just as important as the other, and one doesn't exist without the other. You know, not to go back to
They're
thought for a
all
second, but nothing happens without thought. So, but we'll go
they're
ahead.
all happening with synchronicity, right? Just
Hmm.
kind of one after another leading into, you know, being able to pull everything together and have an understanding of what's actually happening. So when you get a synchronicity, it's not just that only single hit on where you're supposed to be at. Maybe that's what's called a coincidence.
Yeah,
But a synchronicity is kind of following the progression of what has happened, the trail of thought or the trail of what is actually currently happening. Even just leading up to this podcast today was very synchronistic for me when we opened up the full conversation of having the well-being is innate group open up with our friend Penny,
yeah.
and getting that going was very synchronistic for me because it was a journey that I've never been on, and I heard never I at the time I had never heard of what was called a mastermind class, and I was really like, what is a mastermind class? And a friend had spoken to me about it, and they're like, you're going to probably be you need to look for a mastermind class to kind of get involved in coaching more often. I was like, okay, whatever. And then our friend Penny said, oh, does anybody want to start a mastermind class? And it kind of started to evolve. We created it, and now it started a nice group between what, maybe 30 of us, where we have
Hmm.
nice conversations. We have, we coach each other, and it's slowly led into podcasts and just, synchronizing with, really just kind of being seen and, being open to having this conversation and getting this experience and this knowing out there. Whereas if we can serve and one person hears what we're talking about, it's a win. It's such a win. That synchronistic event that traveled through to create this group to get us on the podcast is just a solid win for all of us. And it's beautiful to think about.
Absolutely. And I love it because I'm going to take my synchronicity there, right, with the group.
Yeah.
And yes, um, our good friend Penny, yeah, created the group. And I was like, okay, what the heck? I'll join. Now, I'm going to say, like, for me, I had joined these groups before, right? Not a mastermind one, but, groups that were meant to, like, bring us together. And they were always just, let's just say at that time it didn't work out. Okay. So that just tells me in reflection that that wasn't, not there was anything wrong with anybody in there. It just wasn't the group for me, right?
Sure. Yeah. Yeah.
So I, if I'm being honest, I came into this one with low expectations, meaning, this is probably going to be another one that where we start off with great intentions, right? And then the next thing I know, the group has gone silent and nothing. This one is completely different. And yeah, through it, we have been able to coach each other, support each other, share ideas with each other. And yeah, so my synchronicity with the group. So I joined the group, right? Low expectations. Yeah. Um, but then it was funny because as far as this podcast goes, so back about November, right? I had been like tossing around the idea of doing a podcast. And so, like, my kids would be like, what do you want for Christmas? My kids are grown kids. But they'd be like, what do you want for Christmas? I'm like, well, you know what? I've been thinking about podcasting. So, maybe a mic or a different camera would be great, come in useful. So, I got the camera at Christmas, right? And I didn't do anything with it. And then lo and behold, I joined this group and I'm in this group and our good friend Pete posts about his podcast. He also posts,
Nice.
you know, well, he posts about his podcast and offering for people to be a guest on there, which I took him up. And so, yeah, when you talk about a little bit of nerves and like, I know what it feels like from being a guest on Pete's podcast and never have done it myself. Okay. But I also reached out to Pete after he had posted about that. And I said, hey, now you guys got to remember this is a group. Yes, we're in the same like um, bigger program of hundreds of people, but this is a group of about 30 people. And I don't know Pete really, you know?
Yeah.
But I reach out to him and I say, hey, I saw your post and podcasting is something I'm interested in. If you don't mind sometime if we could get together for a little chat and maybe you can share a little bit about what you know. And he, absolutely responded back. We had a little chat. And then my birthday was around March. So this is shortly after Pete and I have our chat. And he had posted about podcasting in the first place. And if anybody was interested, and my birthday comes next, my son got me a microphone for it.
Nice.
So, and then a little bit later, I started the podcast. And it's the synchronicities now to look back. Because way back in November, before I don't even know if the group had formed yet in November. Um, Maybe it had, I'm
Not
not
this one.
positive.
No. Mm-mm. No.
But
Not until yeah, end of January. Yeah.
yeah,
Mhm.
so back in November, I start thinking about podcasting. Then I joined this group probably towards the beginning ish, somewhere in January, and then in February, I'm pretty sure is about when, in somewhere around there is when Pete posted about podcasting and being on his podcast. And then a couple months later, I started my own and just said, go for it. What, I have nothing to be afraid of, So yeah, it perfectly
Yeah.
aligned events, not coincidence, synchronicities, because I've been part, my whole point or I should say another point to all of that was I've been in groups before where
Yeah.
we start out with great intentions, but nothing happens. And this group is different, and it's really cool, the mastermind group. And yeah, a lot of good friendships out of it, and just a lot of support and genuine care and love for each other, that we want to see each other succeed in whichever avenues we take our coaching or our teaching of this understanding. And it's the coolest thing. So, and Aaron, I know that Penny started it, but I know that you're one of the admins along with Pete. And
Yeah,
I'm grateful to all three of you for putting in the time and effort and getting it up and going with Penny, because man, I've met some cool people.
yeah. Thank you so much. That's yeah. It kind of comes back to the like I appreciate you saying that too. And it's cool because when we started the group, we weren't sure where it was going to go. And I had something I wanted to speak on that, but I do appreciate you saying that. Um, I lost my train of thought.
Happens all the time.
It aligns. That's what innate well-being really means to me as to step into a coach, the encouragement side, the belief in one another, the change in life, the being able to be present with your person that you are trying to help in this whole experience. And that's where I think this whole change happens in your personal experiences when when we encourage, when we are present, when we listen softly. And that's the best part about the group is the encouragement. We all know the understanding, so we can come to one another if we need help with something, if we're having a problem, we're trying to solve something. And that's the beautiful part about this is that we're all kind of working together to kind of grow the community and become, you know, more cohesive and get the word out. This isn't difficult, but you do have to be committed and understand what's being said. So it's really just listening in, and it comes back to your synchronicities and just being started with it, and it's a beautiful opportunity.
Yeah.
I love it.
And to go off of a point that you made there, Alec, the thought came in my head and went back out. It'll come back to me though. But
There's some feeling right now. Oh, it's like
yeah,
a curtain.
yeah, it happens. But no, actually, see, it's back.
Yep.
Is that's the other thing, because um,
Yeah.
you brought up you know the coaching and the support of each other and the practice and all of that. And what I wanted to say is, that's the other thing that makes this, what we do in the principles, different from, no disrespect to anybody in the coaching field, ever, ever.
Mhm.
But yeah, because we're coming from a place of our innate wisdom and a place of the principles, we're speaking to you through our authentic selves. There's no list of questions. I mean, nothing's in my hand. I don't have anything. I don't have a script to go by. And you're right. So yeah, it's the same when we work with our clients. Um, we don't have a list of questions. And it also goes back to like how our perspectives are different too. We don't have a list of questions because human beings, though, might present the same kind of problem or issue, they're all different in how they perceive it. They're all different, in their own ways. And so yeah, that's what I love about what we do, is because we don't have 10 important questions you better ask the client so you can understand, or do you know what I'm trying to say there? It's not like, we're
No,
not
mhm. Yeah,
here.
it's not scripted. We
Yeah,
can't. We're not scripting here, trying to figure out what their problem is with, or what they're worried about with anxiety. We're just trying to get to that feeling, and try and bring them back to that knowing that you're safe as long as you kind of step away from yourself.
yeah. And
Okay.
I think what's also important too, really quick about that, especially with anxious feelings, and they're okay.
Yeah.
Sometimes,
Huh? Yeah.
they're just trying to tell you something, and sometimes
I
they're
like that.
not. It's
Mhm.
not being scared of those thoughts because that's what they are. They're thoughts
Yeah.
attached to a feeling, and not to be afraid of them, and just realize what they are, just a thought, and maybe even what it's trying to tell you, because then that's your wisdom sometimes coming through there, it's trying to tell you something, and sometimes wisdom can use anxiety, or let's say mind. Mind can use anxiety or fear or sadness just as much as mind can use joy and peace and happiness to try to get us to see something, you know, to get us to pay attention.
Yeah. You've gone off road a little bit, right?
Right.
There's one that floats around in the well-being that you're going off road, you hit the rumble strips, right? And you're just being led to come back home, come
Yeah,
back and drive between the lines.
absolutely. Yeah. And that's yeah, that's what I love about this.
And
It's
it's okay to be okay, right? If you're not okay, it's okay to be okay as long as you're understanding that, as long as you are.
synchronicity.
Hmm.
Sorry, Aaron. Keep
It's
going.
hard to, no, it's great. I love it. I absolutely love it. Yeah, it's hard to, right? I mean, you're wondering why you're not okay, but maybe at that baseline you are okay, but we're thinking we're not. And if you come to this, understanding, you'll be okay regardless.
So I'm gonna tell you something because
Yeah.
gosh, I just love mind. Okay. And not just
Hmm.
synchronicities, but affirmations from mind. Okay, not affirmations I make up in my head. So you said it's okay to be okay. I love that because that was an affirmation for me. Because as you guys will soon know, I don't know if you know or not, because I know you talked to Jennifer, but I will be doing a second podcast with two co-hosts. So we'll all host equally, so that I'm not the main host. The three of us host equally. And the name
I
of
love it.
it
I love
is It's Okay to Be Okay.
Perfect.
Isn't that awesome? But you just said that there, and I heard mine say, got it? You know, you hear him? And
Yeah.
I love it. So those are the kinds of things we're talking about, everybody. Like, that's not a coincidence, guys. Which most,
Unscripted conversation.
yeah,
Yeah.
a completely unscripted conversation. And most people would look at that and be like, oh, what a coincidence. That's the name of our new podcast, right? That's not a coincidence. That is mind saying, yep, that's that's so cool. Like I
Right. Some in me spoke up and said, "Hey, talk about this. Say something about this," and then brought up your conversation. It's actually very current and meaningful in your life right now.
yeah, that's how amazing this is and when we are aligned with each other, because
Yeah.
we're rooted in the same understanding. Yeah, we have our different groundings, but our different groundings are in the same understanding. Hopefully that makes sense. Um But that's what's cool is because that's not the first time it's happened.
Yeah.
But it is with this new project,
Yeah.
and
And,
I'm
oh,
not
nice. So it hasn't been spoken about. Yeah. Okay. Nice. You're
no
unveiling it.
except between the three of us, and
Sweet.
I don't
Well,
want to,
there we go.
I don't really want to like wow, they will get mad. So it's me and Jennifer Buck
Yeah.
and Melissa Jacobson.
Congratulations. I love it. I
It
love it.
We're really excited, and
Cool.
it's going to be so much fun. And we just have great ideas for it. Um, you'll hear about it, I'm sure.
Oh, for sure. It kind of reminds me of like coming back to a quiet mind, right? Because then we can kind of be able to listen to our wisdom and it brings up more in the conversation. It brings us present to what we're actually, what's current in our lives. There isn't worry, there isn't fear. We dropped the anxiety, we dropped everything before we came in, and we're just being present with the conversation. I'm so stoked for that one. I'm so like, yes, I
Thank
can't wait to
you
hear them
so
all. I can't wait
much.
to see it.
You know what's awesome?
Yeah,
I genuinely, and that's another thing, guys, like I genuinely feel that authenticity and that genuine excitement for us. And I thank you for that so much. Thank you.
yeah,
And,
yeah. Acknowledge it.
I'm sure at some point we're going to be like, oh, hey, Aaron,
You
we're,
got me.
we're
I'm
looking for the
here.
cast. But
Let's
I'm going to
go.
continue to do this one, but I'm really looking forward to doing that one too, just because we're going to take it different places and I'm not going to spoil the whole thing because it's not for me to tell everybody about.
Oh, yeah, 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 totally. You're excited. I see it in you too. You're excited about just having the opportunity and the connections and the synchronicities, and it kind of brings back in full circle about the conversation,
Absolutely.
I love
Because,
it.
yeah, without the, the mastermind group that was started
Yeah,
by, an individual I didn't know, made up of under other individuals I didn't really know. For the most part,
yeah,
some of the people in there I had never really even seen, right? Until the group. And then, yeah, then now friendships and collaborations, and it's very cool.
yeah. Opportunities are coming, right? That's what I could keep hearing is opportunities are available now, and this is what's going to be happening moving forward, and growing the community and friendships, and being able to just work on our own grounding and understanding. So that's
Absolutely.
what we call it, is a grounding, and it's an understanding. So
Yeah,
it's super
absolutely.
helpful.
And I like that you say, and I'm not going to ramble on too much more. I say that every time. Um,
You're good.
I like that you bring it back to yeah, this is a grounding, right? In an understanding and a truth, a truth. And it's funny just because, like, having a conversation with somebody totally different, this morning that I met for the first time. And that's what we're talking about is continuing to grow in our understanding and in our awareness and in our professionalism and in our businesses, whatever that looks like for each of us. It's, not going to look the same for each of us because we're all individual people, living in our moment to moment thought created realities. And yeah, I'm excited to see, you know, what what does the future hold, not just for myself, but for the connections I have made. I'm excited to see what you do,
Yeah.
I think that my next guest on here, if not the next, but the one after will be Penny.
Love it.
Hopefully,
Yeah, absolutely.
she
Yeah, for sure.
started she came up with a group and
Yeah.
I see, look, we just went on talking and
The way I kind of see like this class and the understanding of well-being is like a gateway. It's an opening. It was a completely it wasn't even in my life a year ago. And to be where I'm at today, I'm super excited for the growth to be on a podcast and to be sitting here with my new friend Crystal, just having a conversation about just this understanding. And it comes back to just being in service and just helping others. If someone can hear this conversation between us and the flow, the dynamic, the understanding, the grounding, then we have a win. And that's all we're doing is we're just sharing it to the next person to kind of help them along in their journey. And that's what I want to do in this life is just help others and just be able to kind of allow them to not be in their heads and know that it's available. You can,
yeah,
you know?
you know what? And I'm gonna say, know that there is hope for some,
Yeah.
for people lost in a misunderstanding. I was once there,
Yeah.
to know that there's hope and you don't have to live in that misunderstanding. You don't have to live in that negative feeling, that there's so much more to our human experience than just existing. We have so much more to offer. I think that sometimes, no, I don't think, I know we sell ourselves very short a lot. And with this understanding, for me, it really opens up the fact that to see yourself at a deeper level and to see your true and authentic self, like I've said before. And it opens up this whole new world. It's always been there,
Yeah.
but it's a whole new world. And it's a fantastic one, even on the bad days. You know what I'm saying? Even on
Thank
the
you.
bad
Thank
days,
you for going there. Uh-huh.
now is way better than my bad days once upon a time. So, yeah,
Yeah, yeah, they're still tough days, but they're easy and they're easy to get through. They're manageable, they're understandable. Yeah, I love that you brought that up because that was yeah, it's because it can be misled, right? You're
mhm,
like, oh, you found the Holy Grail.
right.
Oh, well, you understand, right? You understand like what you're supposed to do. Well, no, not really. There's bad days,
Mhm.
but you just learn to navigate it in a different way.
Yeah,
You're easier on yourself, you're lighter to yourself, you kind of, you perceive it completely different. And once you change your perception of what's going on and what's in front of you, you zoom out. If you're able to zoom out and just kind of take a step back, whew, a breath comes in and you can relax your shoulders and just say, it's going to be okay. I don't know when, but I'll step out of it soon.
yeah, I love that. I love that, Aaron. See, there is always just these beautiful spaces to end on. And that was just an amazing, beautiful point that I want everyone to just take in.
Hmm.
Yeah. Well, I mean, anything else you want to add, you can.
I think I'm good. I think I like how we're ending right there. I absolutely love the conversation, Crystal.
Me too, me too. So if anybody wants to get in touch with you, is there a way for them to do so?
It's at let me pull it up real quick. It is at wellbeingwithaaron.com.
Nice. And
And I'm just going to get my site going and you can reach out on that.
I will put that in the comments for anybody that wants to have a chat with Aaron. Yeah, he's
Yeah, please.
pretty cool. And I mean, you've watched for the last almost hour. So anybody
Yeah.
that wants to reach out to you, they'll know how to get in touch with you. And but hey, thank you again for the conversation and for being on my podcast and bringing your perspective and your wisdom to share with everyone. I really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Crystal. I appreciate that. Yeah, thank you for showing up and producing this podcast. So we'll be in touch.
Yeah, it sounds good. And thank you, everybody, for watching. We'll see you next time.